Welcome to the 3Haunted podcast, where we bring you all things horror, supernatural, folklore, mythology, and all things that go bump in the night.
Hey guys, this is your co-host Ashley Lunar Goddess, Gorilla Girl filmmaker and horror-loving cinephile. I'm just your average pun-making swearwolf that loves to explore the spookier things in life.
Hey everybody, I'm John Thomas, paranormal investigator, super smartass, and film lover extraordinaire.
What's up, ghouls, gals, and all of my meta pals out there? In today's episode, we have special guest writer and director Rob Levinson. He's joining us for a live stream special to talk about his upcoming movie, The People of New York versus Ronald J. DeFeo Jr. Welcome, Rob.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate this opportunity to speak with you guys about the film.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you on. Amityville itself has made quite a bit of an appearance in its other versions, the film versions on the various episodes of our podcast. So it's really exciting to find out there's someone out there who's creating an account of the actual story of Ronald DeFeo Jr. So we're excited to have you on.
Hey, that's great. Yep, and there's my dog. Uh, so it always happens, right?
That's, I have two, and you never know when they're going to go off.
Yeah.
One was a blessing, the other, well, maybe a curse. I don't know. But
I'm in the same boat.
yeah. So Amityville. There have been a ton of Amityville movies that have come out. A lot of fan movies. If you've done your research on Amityville, there must be at least 7 or 8 fan films that I've noticed floating around on YouTube, or I see them on Facebook being advertised. So my film it's not a studio movie. It's through my independent film company, Out of Time Pictures, and we've been around for about 5 years, and this is about my 5th, I guess, production overall. And the Amityville subject has always been one that fascinated me from the time I was a kid. I grew up in the '70s and '80s, and I was right there when those movies first came out. The Amityville horror, and it's still a cult classic, right? Kids in their 20s still flock to see that movie every Halloween, I'm sure, when it comes on. So once I became a writer many years later, it was always in the back of my mind, how could I make an interesting Amityville film? And it took forever, it seems, to finally get here.
It's funny you mentioned that. I have one of those remotes you speak into, and I just did all I said was Amityville to see what search results it would pull up on its different streaming platforms, and 55 hits came up. That's a lot of hits. And I was just scrolling. I'm curious because I've seen a lot of the, original first few and some of like the reboot. But with what was it, Ryan Reynolds? But I was curious, and it was just like, holy cow. Amityville has like a clown house, Amityville theater, Amityville vampires, Amityville, and it's all things Amityville. It's a catch-all. I think there was one with like sharks, Amityville Island. I don't even know how that works, but it was interesting.
I think I watched one of them like a year ago, and it's they're definitely fan films. They're just made for fun. They're not made to be taken seriously. But my film, on the other hand, my proof of concept that we filmed, is meant to be taken very seriously, and that is something I hope that we get that point across when it premieres October 22nd in Millbury, Massachusetts. What I based my story on is the actual murder trial of Ronald DeFeo Jr., who was arrested and charged with murdering 6 members of his family. And that story has never been told by Hollywood or any independent film company. And I realized that was the only story that would be worth telling, that would be worth me investing, a couple of years of my life researching, and then writing, rewriting. And when I decided to do the proof of concept, I realized I needed a large cast, and I needed locations. And you saw from the trailer, we are in different locations. We're actually in a courtroom. We're, in someone's house that looks similar to the DeFeo home. And that in and of itself was a quest to find a house, a Dutch colonial that had some sort of resemblance, because building a facade or to be on a set would just be impossible because that's way too expensive. And trying to keep costs down on this was everything I had to do to get this into production, because it was mostly self-financed, with some donations coming in. But for a 30-minute film, you can easily spend $5,000 like nothing. So, dipping into your own personal savings account to create art is it's a risky thing, and you have to be willing to lose it all, because independent filmmakers generally don't make their money back. So
Yeah, that's indie film. Is like
yeah,
almost almost all of it is self-funded or crowdfunded in some way. And thank goodness for crowdfunding, because in the
thank
past it
goodness.
was just all self-funded. So
Right.
how long did it take you to complete the research for your script?
Well, I knew a little bit here and there, the general stuff about DeFeo. I knew that he was incarcerated somewhere up in upstate New York until his death about a year and a half ago. And it just required a lot of reading online forums about the Amityville horror. And I also read a very interesting book written by the prosecutor in the trial, called High Hopes. And I got a lot of information out of that based on the investigation that actually continued post arrest. Finding witnesses, getting witnesses to cooperate. This was an 8 to 9 week. I've heard some reports it was 7 weeks, and then some that it was a 9 week trial. So it was the longest trial in Suffolk County's history, at least up until that point. So, and it fascinated the whole country. This was one of the most disturbing mass murders probably that hit the news. Because there were little children involved. I mean, to wipe out your siblings. I mean, and your parents. It's a horrific event. So, yeah, so that there was a lot of research there, but the book was a great tool. I was able to pull some of the real investigators who helped get this individual successfully prosecuted, and I was able to build a narrative around those characters, and to incorporate some of my own spin, as far as creating situations, such as the relationship that the prosecutor has with his wife, how this impacted his day-to-day life at home, taking on the most popular case in New York at that time, was going to definitely, consume most of his time. And he was, married, had two young children at home, a young prosecutor. He's hungry, he wants to make a name for himself. And, he definitely coaxed his way into getting the case because he wasn't originally assigned this case. So he had to do some, crafty maneuvers to get the district attorney's office to assign him to the case.
So is your film told from the perspective of the prosecutor?
Exactly. Yes,
Nice.
Gerard Sullivan was the lead prosecutor on this. And, without knowing much about him, because he died fairly young, he passed away suddenly at around the age of 51. So that was back in the early 90s. And there's not much out there about him. In fact, I couldn't even find a photograph of what he looked like, which is kind of bizarre, considering he prosecuted and got the conviction of DeFeo, that you'd think that he would have been in some newspaper, just showing him. I mean, I'm sure it's out there. I just haven't found it yet, and maybe I will, maybe I won't. But
Yeah, being such a high profile case that's continued on, right? People still try to
yeah,
investigate
I
it
know.
even now. You think that it would be easier to find something. But wow.
Yeah. So, being told from his perspective, I had to really incorporate a lot of my own ideas. This is where we take creative liberties as artists, as writers. We want to tell a cohesive story, but we also want it to be entertaining. Right? We don't want it to be. It's not meant to be a documentary. It's a narrative film. So not only do we want to incorporate the facts, but we also want to incorporate situations of what if. Could this case have impacted his family life in such a way? Uh, so that's where the gift of writing, I guess, kicks in, or you hope you have some sort of gifts to incorporate into these characters, and you only get that from feedback from other writers or actors when you work out scenes once you get on set, right? You see what works, what doesn't work. Sometimes you make changes right there on set, even if it's just a word that doesn't fit. And the cool part is my co-producer Nick Gordon, he's a lawyer, so he is a trial attorney. So
Oh, that's great. So he's got a sense of how that goes.
exactly, and he's such a lover of film like I am, and very excited about just working on a case such as this, and being able to be in a courtroom and telling, okay, that wouldn't really happen, Rob. Let's reword it this way because that's really what would be said. So that's invaluable, because you think about how many courtroom dramas where they might get something wrong, or they really stretch what really would happen, which is fine. But it was great having Nick there, and there's some cool behind the scene pictures on Facebook of him and me and a couple of other, my script supervisor, and we're just like looking at the script and talking to the actor and reworking it, and it's a team. It's teamwork that makes this. I might have written it and directed it, but there's so many other facets in filmmaking, which I'm sure you all know. The relationship between the cinematographer and the director, and the actors and the background players. There were a lot of background players, especially in the courtroom scenes. So that was the first for me. I've never handled a cast of that magnitude, but it went really smooth.
Well, the art direction, just from the trailer alone, like you can tell there's a lot of harmony going on with the crew because
Yes.
the tone of the editing, the style of the editing very much did take you into the time space this is supposed to be in. It doesn't feel like you threw on this is in the 70s, this is what happened. It was, but we've got all this modern looking color, tone, and temperature. People don't realize that the editing alone really has to set that so we
Right.
feel they're there. And the I feel like just watching the trailer, I felt like I was taken back.
Oh, good. I was going to ask you that. I was going to throw a question on you guys. Did you feel like it was a period piece? Did you feel like
Oh, I
it's
definitely.
good?
Absolutely. Just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the costuming, and it wasn't over the top, right? It
Right.
wasn't a caricature of what people might think, oh, that's the 70s. It really did feel subtle but appropriate to that timepiece, like a
Good.
well
Thank you.
executed period piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were lucky.
Absolutely.
I mean, my editors, David Borges, he's my main editor. I've worked with him on a few other productions of mine, and he's just fabulous. He's got so much patience. I mean, he's probably the most patient editor that I've encountered. And Jeffrey Bassett, who was my cinematographer, but also he was the colorist. He color graded the film. So, and then my sound editor, Bill Rosenthal, really just added some beautiful Foley art in there. It's such an amazing thing to watch the raw footage and see it develop as you add these little intricate details to make this cohesive, beautiful, story. And I think people are really going to be impressed with it, when they see the whole thing.
So you said you grew up with this being, present. This is you wanted to figure out how to make an Amityville of your own.
Right.
And I think this is a really awesome way to do it because, I think it's really easy to get lost, right, in the lump of all the Amityville movies and all
Yeah.
the Amityville things out there. And this, I feel like just watching from the trailer alone, this stands out already. And it's like, oh, I want to watch that.
Yeah.
It stands out. Now, did you find, being on the East Coast, did you find like almost a resistance when you're like, I'm gonna make this movie because it's like, oh man, here we go? Or did you find that people were just like, yeah, that's cool, let's do it, man?
You know something? Actors, like indie actors, just want to work. A lot of them, and some of them, a few of the people in the cast I've worked with before, like Chris Salve. He plays William Weber, the defense attorney in this, and Chris really wanted the part badly, and he always wanted to play a lawyer, and he gave me an audition. The audition was really good, and I think once people started reading snippets of the script, what I was doing when I was casting people, when I put out a casting call, people would respond. I'd send them a snippet of the script, and they would do a video audition, and you could tell which actors were really into the part, were into selling themselves as these characters, and I was just blown away by the talent. Eddie Nason plays Gerard Sullivan, the main character. Ethan Rogers plays Ronald DeFeo Jr., who he really looks like him. If you could put their pictures side by side of the real DeFeo of what he looked like, and Ethan, it's very scary. I think we've come the closest. There's been a couple other films maybe where they tried to find actors to, play that character, even in just like flashback sequences. I think I know for sure we beat Hollywood when it comes to casting an actor who looks just like the real dude, and so I'm really proud. And the fact that Ethan is such a phenomenal actor. Yeah, I talked to Ethan a year before this even happened, and he was on board. He was like, "Hey, if you can write something that's good, send it to me, and if it's good, I'll do it." And once I got his approval, once he read the script, he's like, "Yeah, this is really good. Let's do it." I didn't want to be hokey and kooky about the script. It's a serious story. 6 people got murdered. So I didn't get any resistance, getting back to your question. There was no resistance here, but I did try to really do my homework, and I reached out to the court system out in Suffolk County, out in Long Island, and found one individual who really went the extra yard for me, and he tried to get some files out of archives, and the files that he did pull unfortunately had nothing to do with the original trial, so that didn't help me much. But it would be great to be able to have all of the documentation that is out there to help develop the story even more.
Yeah, I'm curious what creative decisions you made, and I know we'll probably have to wait for the movie, but what creative decisions you made because DeFeo had so many different, constantly changing accounts of what happened. So, like, deciding which do you, or is it all of them? You show them all, or what do you go for?
No, I'm going for the truth. There's he cast a lot of doubt. Sometime in the mid '80s, he started blaming his the eldest sister Dawn, who was 18 at the time of her death, and he tried to put it all on her, saying that she killed everyone, I think they both conspired to kill the parents, but then he left the house, and while he was gone, she murdered the siblings. And then in a fit of rage, he grabbed the gun and shot her and killed her. I don't believe that at all. I don't think there's any physical evidence to really prove that happened. I know that there's some people out there who like conspiracy theories, and there was some unburnt gunpowder found on her nightgown, but that doesn't mean that she fired a weapon. It just means that she was in close proximity when the weapon was fired, which makes sense because both of the daughters, his sisters, they received to be shot and killed is horrific in and of itself, but they were shot at close range, and they were both headshots to both of the girls. So just use your imagination what their faces looked like. I've seen some of the autopsy pictures, and they're brutal. And he used a high-powered rifle, 35 caliber Marlin, so it would make perfect sense for there to be powder residue on her clothing. So he's just the most unreliable narrator there is. I mean, do I think Butch was somewhat mentally ill? Probably, but he was also a drug-crazed 23-year-old. He was doing LSD, shooting up heroin, drinking a ton of alcohol. Do I think he was high that night? Probably. But do I think he knew what he was doing was wrong? Probably. I think he had the mindset that it was in a fit of rage. I don't know what prompted him to really kill his siblings. But the theory behind the prosecution standpoint is he did it for insurance purposes. That the father had like a $200,000 life insurance policy that he thought that he would be able to inherit all the money after if everyone else was dead. In fact, this is a fact that he said this to one of the investigators after he gave his confession about murdering his entire family. He said to one of the detectives, "Does that mean I can't get the life insurance money?"
Oh my gosh.
That's how stupid he was. He just thought, I just confessed to murdering 6 people, but I can still get the money, right? You know.
It's what's interesting too because they've had different ballistics experts, right, talk about the gunpowder, and they've all said the same thing in terms of just being close range will cause that. It's not enough to
Sure.
it being on her nightgown isn't enough to really be like, oh, she shot some people.
Yeah, I mean, and let's not forget this. This is a very important fact of the case. Besides his full confession that he made, he also told investigators where his clothes were and where they could find where he threw the weapon in the Amityville River, behind his house. And the divers found the rifle in like 30 feet of water right off the dock where he said it would be. This is all within 24 hours or so of the murders. They found his bloodied clothes in a storm drain in Brooklyn. So he led them to all of these sites where only the murderer would know that information. So unless, of course, he had an accomplice and he was just like a bystander, because he tried to use that as an excuse that it was a mob hit. He was forced to watch. Then he said his friends, he tried to blame his friend, I think Bobby Kelski, at one point, saying that Bobby did this and he was just sort of forced to go along with it. I mean, his story changed at least 5 times, as to who the real murderer was. So he has no credibility whatsoever. The only time Butch DeFeo told the truth was when he confessed within that 24-hour period of being in custody. Everything else post that is a lie, because I think once it's set in that, holy crap, I've just been convicted of 6 murders and I have to spend 25 years to life in prison, I got to start shaking the tree and see if I could get a new trial here based on my lawyer didn't give me a proper defense. The police beat me and forced me into giving an interrogation. There was all things he came up with.
Speaking of shaking the tree, now they do have ties to, is it the Genovese crime family?
Yeah, I mean, this Louis Fellini, or actually that's the alias he used. His name was Mazio, his last name. He was a contract killer. So the family did have ties, to people who were connected with the one of the crime families in New York. But there was just, I mean, he had a when they located him, he had a clad tight alibi. He wasn't even in the state.
I just feel like too, if it was a mob hit and your family knows like the mob, the way it works, you wouldn't tell. It wouldn't be, oh wait, it was the mob. It was it would just be one of those things where you take it to the grave. If it actually were some kind of mob assigned activity.
Right?
And,
Because even if you got
mob-
away with it, I mean, he'd still have the
Right.
mob to worry about now. So,
Yeah, they're coming after you now.
For sure, and the mafia generally doesn't wipe out the whole family.
Right.
They tend not to murder children.
yeah.
Maybe the husband for sure if they were after him, the wife if she got in the way, but certainly not children. So
I am
even the mob has a
curious.
code of ethics.
Even though I do. I am curious though, because the one thing that I've always tried to like get my mind around is the fact that nobody heard the gunshots.
Yeah, well, something, and that's the biggest mystery. Even the prosecutor in the case was dumbfounded by that. You could go on YouTube and you could listen to a bunch of different opinions about that. That the home was so well insulated, that the gunshots wouldn't have been heard. I don't know. I don't want to go down the road that it was because the devil had something to do with it. Was able to silence the shots. I just don't believe any of that.
I've never even heard that theory.
Yeah, well, if you read enough, I mean, people just like to throw all kinds of crazy things out there, and I don't know. It's the dead of night. You would think that six, or actually it was like eight gunshots. Um, you'd think someone would hear it, even the next door neighbor. But I think that's the biggest mystery, and the prosecutor himself says he'll never understand that aspect of the case. But
Yeah, because it's a rifle. Rifles are not quiet, and they were saying he didn't use a silencer, right? So it's like
no,
so that they know of. So it's just like, oh my gosh, how did those are loud? I don't know if anybody's ever heard a rifle being shot. Like that's not a quiet
mm,
sound. So it's I'm curious how the other family members didn't hear it, but let's say heaviest sleepers around, how nobody else heard it. Because I
well,
could see how maybe neighbors wouldn't, right? Because depending on the weather, depending on how large the land is, that's maybe feasible. But six people asleep in a home,
well,
I
this is
don't
there's
know.
one theory out there about the kids. Why the kids didn't get up and leave the house is that, think about, I don't know if you've ever had a horrible nightmare or a night terror where you wake up and you can't move, like you're frozen in bed, like you're conscious of your body that you're awake but you can't move. So these kids who are really young, especially the boys, it's possible they could have heard those noises, woken up, been so scared that they didn't want to move.
Yeah, they're
You just
terrified.
freeze. You feel like you're protected in your bed, right? If you put the
Yeah.
covers over your head, perhaps. And then when they saw Butch enter their bedroom, even though he was holding a rifle, they were probably confused. They didn't know, like, my brother's not going to kill me, not going to shoot me. He's probably here to protect me. And then,
Yeah.
lo and behold, they get shot. But
That makes sense.
yeah, there's many theories. And then the girls, well, the eldest girl was on the top floor, on the third floor, and the parents' bedroom was on like the first floor, or second floor rather. And then the sister Allison, 13-year-old, she was, I believe she was on the same floor as the parents. Could be wrong, but um, yeah, who knows?
So you don't believe in the devil that made him
Well,
do it. I'm kidding. I found it interesting because there is a quote out there where they were asking him about like the demons in the Amityville and stuff like that because I think he even tried to blame it at some point.
mhm.
Um, and his response was something along the lines of, "There are no demons in the house. I'm the only demon," or something like that, or like, "I am the demon." Pretty much saying it's not
Yeah,
supernatural. I'm the monster that did it. So,
yeah. I've heard him refer to himself as the Amityville Horror. I've actually
yeah.
heard him. I think he said that in an interview. So I think it just depends on what day of the week it was when people were questioning him. He just changed his mind whenever he felt like it. Um, there was a good interview that they did with him back in 2013 or something. I think it was the last video interview with him, and he was already an older man. He looked like he was ill, and it was a good program. But unfortunately, they didn't go far enough with question giving asking him accusatory questions. It was almost like dancing around him, and asking him questions that really didn't matter to what everyone wants to know. Now that you're in your 60s, are you ever going to admit that yes, you did this? At this point in your life, you're not getting out of prison. You're not well. Leave like a dying confession, perhaps, or
He wasn't having it.
yeah. So
Now, he did die in custody in 2021, and I'm curious, how do you think that will impact the release of this? Do you think it might bring more awareness to it? More people are going to, or do you think people are going to move on from this story because he's gone?
well, you know, the hope behind the proof of concept is, I have a 30-minute proof of concept. So we give people like the appetizers. We give the audience an appetizer for, what happened, right when the police respond to the house and start the investigation. We give, a little piece when we see him in custody, and we see the relationship with the prosecutor and his wife, and so on and so on. And we never give answers because we're trying to entice an audience to want to see more, to see the whole story. We want, potential investors to look at this and say, this looks like a polished, story. It looks like they really put a sincere effort into telling an Amityville story that's never been told before. Considering it's low budget, it doesn't really look like it's low budget. I think from the trailer, it looks like a mid-range type of film, and there's potential there, and that's what we want. Everyone who has seen it, they say that there's a lot of this a story there to be told. There's different facets of the story, and it's not so much to talk too much, to emphasize too much about DeFeo himself. He's a character in this. He's definitely important to the story. He is the story, but it's more of the prosecutor. It's more of how he went into this case not realizing how challenging it was going to be to get a guilty verdict, because the defense attorney William Weber, who was like the third attorney that was assigned to DeFeo in the case, really did what he could to throw monkey wrenches, in the prosecution, and he did a pretty good job, all things considered. And I want to show how this case could have gone either way. It wasn't just a slam dunk as you would think it would be.
Yeah, I think they even went really hard on the insanity.
They did, but I think it backfired because DeFeo was so bad on the witness stand when he testified. He just, he was threatening the judge, he was threatening the prosecutor, he was just acting way too over the top. And even though the defense had a psychiatrist testify that he was mentally incompetent, the prosecution had their own independent psychiatrist testify that he was competent. That yes, he suffered from he had some form of mental illness, but not the kind that would deter him from knowing right from wrong. And so.
And that's the big
it
piece,
took
is knowing
jury
right from
2
wrong.
hours. It only took the jury 2 hours to deliberate.
Wow.
It was quick.
That is actually really quick, especially for a murder trial. I've done jury duty recently, and it took us 2 hours for something small, and so
Sure.
wow.
Yep.
So you read High Hopes, and I actually was listening to an interview with George Lutz recently.
Okay.
And it wasn't about like the paranormal. It was just, talking about the house itself and why he bought that house. And so it was interesting because he did reference the High Hopes book and was talking about where High Hopes even originated from, the name. And I think it was because they had put a sign outside of the house before the DeFeos, before it was sold. Uh-oh, does he have it?
Dun, dun, dun. Here's a prop from the movie.
He has the sign!
Sweet.
High Hopes.
Recreation
Love it.
of it.
That's awesome. It looks exactly like the one that was in the photograph.
Yep.
So, he mentioned that they also brought in a bunch of statues that he had commissioned, the father had commissioned, and so they were thinking something was going on, that they were suddenly bringing in all of this, I guess, religious imagery. And so I was curious where you think that originated from, what was causing that? Because I think they said a few months later they all were murdered.
Yeah, I have the answer for you.
Ooh, he's got it.
I got the answer for you. So, and I think even in the book, Butch, Ronald DeFeo mentions this, that there was an incident that happened a few weeks before the murders where the father was abusing the mother. The father wasn't a nice person. He was a bully. He was a big guy, if you saw pictures of him. And do I believe that Ronnie Jr. was a victim of, domestic violence? Sure. I'm sure he beat his kid. And he probably hit his wife. So what happened was Ronnie DeFeo Jr. went down with a rifle, pointed it at his father, and squeezed the trigger. And even though it was loaded, there was a round inside the chamber, it didn't go off. So that's what prompted the father to say this was a sign from God. God saved me. God stopped that rifle from being fired. And as a result, they drove all the way up to Canada. That's where they got these statues from, where they were constructed. And he brought it home. He would pray. He was praying all the time, from what people were saying, that he became very religious, and that he thought this was God intervening and giving him another chance at being a better person, or what have you. So yeah, I mean, guns do misfire, for whatever reason. Um, so that's the story behind the statues.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that probably is a byproduct of being addressed in the film, is that, or like something side note, but I think like we can all agree
Hmm.
he has, people don't in their right mind go and murder their entire family. And he was obviously addicted to a lot of different drugs, like you said.
Right.
They even mentioned it in some of the articles out there that, he had been partying with his six friends or something the night before. But
Sure.
I think that it would be interesting to hear or see how that impacted not just him, but his siblings. We'll never know that story. But
Right.
it's just like, and that doesn't make what he did right, but like we only are left with what he shared. And a, he's not a credible witness. And so any of his stories is like, like, well, that sounds plausible, like it could be true, or this sounds like it's probably not true. But even trying to wade through that has to have been really difficult for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think you have to use some form of common sense when it comes to things that Butch said. I mean, there was even one story where he said the mother killed the father. It was just one of those. When I heard that, that's like, really, you got to be kidding me. Um, yeah, so it's reading the book really painted a pretty clear picture, for me, and it's just my take on the um, the material the source material that's out there, and you pick and choose what you want to uh, talk about. It's kind of like the writer's options. There are options on the table. Yes, could have I picked that this was a mob thing, or could I have picked that this was Dawn was responsible for these murders, and that Ronald was a victim himself, and all of this. I could have, but I don't feel like that has any merit to it more than what the evidence shows. Just like there's this, there was a like 15 years ago, there was this theory that the mother was shot by a second gun, that there was another gun used. And according to the autopsy report, is that it was the same caliber bullet that killed all of them. So there was this theory that there was a gun. I mean, I know they said they found like the frame of a pistol in the Amity River, but that doesn't mean anything. I mean, people throw guns in the river, all the time. I mean, where do you think what's the number one spot where someone chucks a gun? They chuck it in the river, right? Or a harbor, where the gun won't be located probably. So yeah, I just went with the most plausible story, and hopefully I'll have the opportunity to make this into a feature film someday, and really bring something there that's worth presenting to an audience, especially one that really enjoys the Amityville story.
From a licensing perspective, have you had any hurdles from telling the story from like the families
Well,
of any of these
I haven't
individuals?
crossed that bridge yet, and I guess let's put it this way: I think what's going to happen is once, and normally with independent filmmakers, and when they make something, it generally doesn't pick up much steam, and it doesn't normally reach the other side of the coast, even though the internet is there for everyone in the world to see. But I haven't had any responses from lawyers or someone like telling me to do a cease and desist. Um, Everyone involved in my story is essentially gone. They're all dead. So I mean, and using the name Amityville in your title, it's not any copyright infringement because it's the name of a town. So there is no
Right.
copyright to a a name. Uh, so hey, if I got contacted, at least I would know I was getting some attention, right? So, I, I
And then
mean, I
you
don't.
just build that in, right, into the overall budgeting.
Yeah, I mean, let's hope not. I don't want to be sued, or of course, but
I'm
I
just
think I have a good
kidding.
story to tell.
Hmm.
I tried reaching out. I won't say too much about this, but I tried reaching out to some descendants of some of the characters, the real life people, and I didn't get a response.
Okay.
So I put it out there. It was, I wrote a nice letter saying, what my intentions were behind this, and I didn't get a response. So either they're not interested or they're waiting to see if I do anything. So I mean, this trailer's been out there for a couple of months, and I don't know. It's
So
out
in,
there.
you made the proof of concept, or that's what you're showing, the proof of concept now. Do
Yeah.
you already have the fully finished feature film ready, the
No, see that's
script?
no. See, I'm still working on the script.
Okay.
I'm a slow writer. As I've gotten older, I procrastinate more. I don't know if that's just I don't have a young mind anymore, and between working full time and just trying to have a life, uh, and this story is so important to me because it's the first time I've ever tried to tell a true story. All my other movies have just been works of fiction, and they haven't been based on anything, uh, any real people. So yeah, I'm really trying to cross my T's and dot my I's, so they say. So I would love to have more input from the DA's office out there in Long Island. That would be wonderful if I could get someone to help me. Maybe they will. Maybe once I release the proof of concept on a streaming service after the premiere, maybe someone there will see it, and maybe they'll say, "Hey, this guy's trying to really, tell a thought-provoking story. Maybe I should give him 20 minutes on the phone." That's what I hope for.
It's really compelling, and you are bringing an aspect of it that tends to be overlooked. You've got the prosecutor's actual marriage and how that's being impacted, which, when we're watching TV and it's a court drama or something,
Mhm.
you're just seeing the investigation and in the courtroom, and
Right.
oftentimes it's highly dramatized, but we don't really see how these things are impacting people's personal lives. It's really creating a personal nature.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping to do. And you want anytime you go to a movie. I mean, I know when I go to a movie, I'll try to pick out one character in the story that I feel attached to, or I would like to be that character. In a movie, even if it's a female character. There's some female characters, especially the way they're written over the last 10 years, that even men can relate to them because there are so many writers out there who finally are starting to write good parts for women. That's always been the biggest problem in Hollywood. Only the guys get the good parts. Only the guy gets to save the day. But that changed a long time ago, and that's great. So when I, even though this is a period piece, it would be great to explore if Gerard Sullivan's wife was a strong woman, if she was, if she really was his rock, and maybe be able to explore that and show that more to the audience. That, the only reason why he won this case maybe was because of his wife's undying support and, picking him up when he's fallen down. And, so that's important. But, you kind of want to stay on point too. I don't like to stray too much, but unfortunately, when the people are no longer alive, and you don't get too much cooperation from the outside, you're kind of stuck. Your back's up against the wall, and you want to finish the story. So you have to be creative, and that's why we say it's based on true events, not that this is a true story, because it's not. It's not a true story. But,
Yeah, I think, you're staying true to what you've been able to research and to the facts of this is what happened in the case. This is, the facts of the arrest, the investigation, the accounts of what has been told in books by, some of the investigators in High Hopes, but also from DeFeo himself. And then you're adding your piece as an artist, as a screenwriter. And I don't
right.
think there's anything, I mean, that's what storytelling is, even on the ones that are based on, or not even based on true events. This is a true account. Even those, unless you were there living it,
Sure.
in that moment, involved firsthand, you really can't tell 100% of what happened. So you have to rely on the artistry to bring that story together and to pull
Sure.
the audience into care.
Exactly. And even though this isn't a Amityville horror movie in the sense of showing poltergeists or windows exploding, um, it's about the tragedy that happened in the house, and the real horror of Amityville is much more disturbing than anything that's been presented, in these other films that were made in the 70s and 80s about demonic spirits in the house. Because we've seen that done to death, right? How many movies are there about exorcisms or, and they're fun to watch. I love horror films. I do, especially smart and I just saw one not too long ago called Watcher on Shudder, and really, really good. It kind of harkens back to, the older 70s movies, where there was this slow burn. You don't see many slow burn films anymore. They just people, an audience just wants to get to the heads exploding and things like that. They don't want the build up to the payoff.
Oh, we talked about that recently in movies that have like it's just gone too visceral to the point where I think we're losing the stories. So it's really nice to go back to a space, especially with something that's traditionally a horror icon. The Amityville house, you can show a picture of it, and most horror enthusiasts will be like, Amityville. Like we know the house. We know it's as iconic as any other horror icon itself. It's a character without
Right.
being a character. And so telling a story about that Amityville house that is real is probably even more disturbing, right? That is, like you said, where the true horror comes in, because this is what really happened.
Well,
This
yeah.
is what jumped off all of that.
Well, think about it right now. What's the most talked about show, right? It's Dahmer, that
Yep.
series, right?
Yep.
Even though I'm sure they took plenty of creative liberties there, a lot of that is based on, testimony, real, the real facts of the case, and that's horrifying. And they don't necessarily even need to show, and they're not really going gratuitous with it. They're not showing over the top stuff. But man, the actor who's portraying Dahmer is so damn creepy that you believe.
Yeah.
You
Oh, yeah.
just look at him and he creeps you out, right?
Yes.
He's been
It's,
creeping me out since American Horror Story season
Yeah.
one.
Evan Peters. Yeah, that's who it is. Yeah.
He does
Yep.
have his eyes, like the
Yeah.
actor's eyes. He's got like these dead eyes.
I was about to say dead eyes.
Yep.
He's really good at playing a creepy guy, So
And you think it's something he puts on, but you see pictures of him and like the paparazzi, and it's like,
And
he
nope,
just looks like that,
that's
yeah.
just his face.
yeah, like he's intimidating to look at just because he's scary. He's
Right.
very in the moment all the time, it seems. So, and I just want to give a shout out to my cast real quick. I mean, I know I spoke about Eddie, Nason, and Ethan, but I have a cast of, gosh, a ton of people. Like I've got Amy Thomason, who's playing Betty Jane Sullivan, the wife. I have Kayla Caulfield. Some people might know her from the Academy Award-winning film Coda. She's in this, which is exciting. Paul Noonan. We have Paul Kandarian. All these guys are big New England actors. I know they don't. You're not from this area, but if you were, you would know who those people are. We have Mark Powers, another well-known actor here in this side of the country. Donnie Francis, David Torres Jr. These guys played the detectives that you saw in the trailer, and man, these guys really look like the real deal. I tried doing the best I could to make to try to cast these actors who resembled the real guys, because luckily I had photographs of the detectives who worked on the case, and so it's just it was very blown away. Sometimes it was just like, wow, I was on set and I'd be like, I can't believe this is happening. There's always that euphoria that happens on every movie set that I'm involved in, where you're standing there and you're watching these actors, say the dialogue, and it's like, how the hell did I get here? It's so, there's so much preparation that goes into getting a movie done, and that's the part that's the payoff. To stand there next to my DP and just watching it happen. It's like a kid in the candy store.
When did you start the proof of concept?
I
Like writing it and
writing
researching
it. I
it.
started the end of last year. I want to say around December, and by March I was essentially done
Oh wow.
with it. And I had about 47, 50 pages
What
written.
about the research?
The research, well, that started a year earlier. Yeah, that's the research was about a year. Writing, taking notes, trying to figure out whose perspective I wanted to tell the story from. At first, it was going to be from Ronald DeFeo's perspective, and I'm like, well, that's just going to be all over the place. That's going to be like a puzzle because he kept changing his story, and I didn't want to go down that road. So I'm like, let's tell it from the good guy's side. Let's tell it from the guy who really did his job and got this guy put away. Um, so yeah, that's where it came from.
I
It,
like that you changed perspective of who it's going to be shown from. I think that
yeah,
it's a little slippery slope and a little bit of a dangerous space when telling it from the antagonist perspective, because sometimes inadvertently we kind of glamorize them when we don't mean to. and, and by shifting it back to the prosecutor, not only that, you get more area to play with like the relationships, because you have not many relationships going on for Ronald DeFeo other
no,
than his fake wife or whatever she was. But
yeah, and that doesn't even play into my story at all. Despite
yeah,
Geraldine, whatever her last name was, but
yeah.
yeah,
But
that came later.
yeah, telling it from the perspective of the prosecutor, I think definitely opens up more avenues of those personal relationships and how a case of that like magnitude and just terror would affect personal life. So I think it's great that you chose that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I plan to tell a little about Ronnie more through the people who knew him, the bar people that hung out with him, the people who did drugs with him, his girlfriend at the time, who Kayla plays really brilliantly. You saw her in the trailer testifying on the stand. Uh, yeah, so that was an abusive relationship, and to be able to see Ronnie through other people's eyes, I think is important because I think that's more of the truth than Ronnie telling who he is, because Ronnie's just going to play the victim card, I was a victim, you know.
Were
So
you able to find anybody that was around during that time experiencing it? Or is this all just, through the research that you were able to
it's
do?
part research, and then it's part just building a story on research, on testimony from what the police said, uh, and just building on it. And I don't know if the real woman is alive, who was Ronnie's girlfriend at the time. She very well could be, um, but I don't know. Is there a chance I'll try to reach out to her or locate her somehow? Yeah, I think I probably would like to at least give her a chance if she's even around. To offer me some input into this, but it's tough. Maybe right now people, I think they don't take independent filmmakers as serious as they would if someone well known. If Scorsese called you up or his people called you, yeah, you're going to return the call, because that's a serious filmmaker. Um,
You just
independent
gotta
filmmakers.
you gotta add it to the end of your name. Hi, I'm Rob Levinson Scorsese.
Yeah, right. It's it's tough to get some credibility with independent film world. I'm still trying. I'm still learning this. Believe me, I'm not ahead of the game. There's so many talented filmmakers that I know personally who are just I see their work and I'm like, man, I want to be as good as them someday. And they're 30 years younger than me. That's the scary part. You know, you get guys who are 25, 30 years old and they're making these amazing films. Um, like I said, Chris Salve, he's an actor, but he's also a writer, filmmaker, and he's doing some great stuff. Gabby Rawson, who's actually one of my co-sponsors. She's sponsoring the event coming up. She has
Yay, Gabby.
yep, Gabby GR Films. Check her out. She is killing it out there. Her movies are to die for. If you like noir, those films, Chris and Gabby make the best noir in New England. Um, I won't even try to venture down that territory just because I know I can't do what they do. And
What you do is you marry the worlds. You bring
yeah,
what you can do to the table and then just make magic happen.
yeah. Well, I hire them to be in my movies. So
There you go.
and then Reveal Entertainment Network, Reveeel, is the main sponsor of my um, festival that's coming up in 2 weeks. And they've been very generous. In fact, we are going to be doing a contest somewhere down the road soon. They're going to give away three pairs of tickets um, to come see the show.
That's awesome. Now, tell us about the festival you have coming up.
Yes, yeah. So October 22nd, it's a Saturday at the Elm Draught House Cinema in Millbury, Massachusetts. A great nostalgic type cinema, one of those old cinemas, a throwback to the 60s. We're showing it there, and we're, along with my film, we have about 7 other movies that we're showing, short films from some amazing filmmakers, all the way from Los Angeles to New England. People can go to my event page on Facebook, the Amityville Film Fest, and they can see who's going to be there as far as the other filmmakers go. We have everything from the strange and macabre to the hilarious. We have a bunch of different films. It's not recommended you bring young kids to this. It's definitely not for young kids. I'd say, if you're 15, 16 or older, that's the ballpark. So we're also celebrating some women filmmakers, and I wanted to incorporate more women filmmakers, and we have 3 wonderful filmmakers who are showing their work. And so I'm trying to cover as much as I can in 4 hours. It's from noon to 4. So it's a tight schedule. We are showing one movie right after the next, and we'll have pictures available. People can come. We have a photographer who's coming. Some of my actors will be there from the Amityville movie. People can get their picture taken with someone who's probably going to be really famous someday. So that's cool. All right, get them when they're starting out. So I'm very psyched. This is my 3rd premiere I've done for a movie, and I'm just so super excited about this because there's been a lot of charisma behind this. A lot of people really excited to see this one, just because of the Amityville, connection.
It definitely helps having that connection, and people, when they are captivated by a world, for lack of a better term, they want more of it. They want more of that world as much as they can get backstories, origins, and so this is a great way, in my opinion, to show that backstory. It gets rid of the supernatural, it gets rid of the vampires, demons, clowns,
Yeah,
dolls, all the things out there, and it just gets back to the truth
the
of where
basics.
it started. Yep.
Yep.
The
Right.
true
And I
world.
like the fact that Amityville's not even in the title, so you kind of keep that away, and it's just
Well,
it's
it's not and it isn't. I kind of sneak it in there once in a while. I'll throw it in there, but for advertising purposes to get people.
oh yeah.
Yeah. But it's an Amityville film in the sense that it takes place in Amityville. It's about the murders that took place there. But yeah. Other than that, we don't really show the house much. From the same perspective as you've seen it in other movies. We're seeing it from a very realistic perspective, which you got a taste of in the trailer a little. You saw the inside of the house. Um,
Well, and
so
the house doesn't look like the house anymore. The owners completely changed the outside facade. So,
yeah, people keep asking me, "Hey, have you gone to the real house?" And I'm like, "No, believe it or not, I haven't." And I had family that lived about 2 towns away from Amityville. And as a kid, it intrigued me. Like, I would say, "Hey, can we drive by? Can we go to Amityville? It's only 20 minutes, I think, from here." And we never did. We never went by the house, and it would have been cool because back then it still sort of resembled the house. But we never did, and I have no desire to really go there now, believe it or not, because you can just go to YouTube, right? How many YouTube videos are there of people going to the house?
I don't know. There's something special, though, about going to places where something that terrified you or you connected to
Yeah,
as a kid still exists. In this case, like it used to, not even gonna lie, be on my bucket list to go out to Massachusetts. I wanted to go to Salem. I wanted to see the Amityville house. And now it's like,
Well,
Amityville House is done, but I still
now
want to
that
go to
you know
Salem.
me, you let me know, call me, and you come out here, and I'll take you. I did. My wife and I went by the Conjuring house not too long ago, because that's about a half hour for me.
See, I'm just gonna call. Be like, Rob, we're going to Salem. We're going to the Conjuring
Right.
House. It's gonna be a full adventure. But
Oh
Sure.
man, I would love that.
right, that's been on my list.
I think they're
I
going to turn it into a bed and breakfast. I heard for the Conjuring
Yeah.
house.
what?
I heard that the new
Yeah.
owners are thinking about doing that, so you'll have a place to stay.
No, no.
She won't. Yeah, she won't stay.
I
Though.
won't do it.
She'll visit, but she won't stay. No.
I went to a haunted Airbnb recently, and I was like, they're like, "Do you want to stay?" And I'm like, "No, thank you. I will poke around until 3 a.m. But if I
Wow.
have to actually sleep in a room, that's not gonna happen."
And guess what? We also went to the Lizzie boarding house
What?
because that's like a
That's-
half hour
yeah.
for me too.
He's
That's
like
on
in
my
the
list,
hot.
too.
You're like in the Bermuda Triangle of horror
Yes, I
haunts.
am.
Right.
I better watch out. Like they always say like in these movies like the Poltergeist where all these tragedies happen. Like I was thinking should I bring a priest in to bless the set before we filmed any of this? And surprisingly enough, only one bad thing happened. I lost one of my hard drives that had some film footage on my from a previous movie, so that's gone. It disappeared.
Oh,
It was
no.
on set,
Oh, no.
and we can't find it. So
Ugh.
I think
It was the sacrifice you had to pay to get new footage.
yes,
That's awful. That would break my heart. I have all
Yeah.
of these hard drives in my closet, and I feel like if I lost one, I would just nope.
No.
That would be awful.
Yes.
I get so paranoid of losing drives and footage that I will like triple back things up, and it probably
Smart.
just like comes across neurotic. But it's like, well, if my backup to my backup dies, what do I do?
No,
Right.
I'm so bad at certain things. Like I said, I don't know. Once it's in the can, once it's done, I try to put it behind me and move on to the next thing. So I don't know, but it would have been nice to have it just in case I ever wanted to recut the film and
Yeah,
but
there's something dear about having that original footage. So.
yes, yeah.
Because when you're super famous, you're gonna want to release those as
Yeah, super famous. I don't know about super fame, but it'd be nice to be able to make a feature film one of these days. That's a dream. So hopefully,
Well.
hopefully there are good people out there that will want to see that dream come to fruition with me.
absolutely, and we would love to stay in contact and updated about your projects. And if there's anything we can do to promote you and help, please let us
Well,
know.
once we start streaming the proof of concept, then you can definitely,
We'll put it out everywhere.
yeah,
Oh yeah, definitely.
sweet.
Are you going to be doing any crowdfunding or anything like that for the feature, or are you hoping to get like a major investment group?
It's always easier to get a couple of people, to just jump in and give you like 50%, and someone gives you 50%. That's ideally. Doing like these Kickstarters are tough.
Yeah.
I stink at raising money on crowdfunding things. I don't know. There's some people who are just so good at it, and I look at their video things that they put together, and I did a small one on a GoFundMe thing for this one, and I raised like $1,300 in 7 days, which for
Oh,
me
wow.
that was like winning the lottery. But I think the lower the amount, like hitting $1,000 isn't so difficult as it is for $25,000. For something like that, do this right, I would need a substantial amount of money because with just the post production especially is where a lot of your costs go to. Editors, they need to be paid what they're worth. I mean, everyone deserves to be paid what they're worth for sure. I'm the only one who never makes any money. I lose money. So it's
Period pieces are expensive in it too, just because you have to pay, I feel like, more to be true to that time period to find those pieces to set that
Well,
decor.
yeah, I was very fortunate that I found that courtroom that isn't used as a courtroom anymore, and the people who take care of it, they were so gracious, and I didn't have to pay anything to use that room other than a custodial fee, But other than that, and I used a real police station. That was a great find.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I mean, I really got lucky, and all of this was right here in Little Rhode Island. I didn't have
Well,
to venture.
locations are hard to find, so
Right, because who can afford to build a set? That's the thing. Unless
yeah.
someone, just the set materials alone would have been thousands of dollars, and then to get, what do you call it, contractors to build it, because I can't do that. So, real is best. You can't, you can't, you don't have to worry about something falling down, someone getting hurt. Set designs can be tricky, and I was just lucky. Everything just fell into place for this one, and there's a lot of people out there I owe a huge thank you to, especially the people who own the home, where we filmed a lot of those scenes for the, DeFeo home. I won't mention their names here in public because I don't want people showing up at their house, but it's just the level of trust that you have to build with people, and you know, it, that's a big part of it is building trust. So
Well,
that
speaks volumes to you because
right,
you're able to foster those relationships and build that rapport. So,
for sure, because you want to be welcome back. That's the thing. You want people to say, "Yeah, you did a great job. You didn't, punch holes in the wall, and no one stole anything. So we're good. You can come back." Yeah,
and you're like, that you know of. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
sure,
Uh,
right.
so, are there any other things that you would like to discuss before we wrap it up?
I know. I hate to wrap it up. It's been a lot of fun, guys.
I know you've been amazing.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, something I'll probably think of a bunch of things after I hang up with you. I want to give a shout out to also Jeremy Aruda. He's the individual who designed my poster, that awesome poster, the silhouette of Ronald DeFeo with the windows, the famous windows. And he's also one of my main composers. He wrote some of we have original music that was written for the movie.
Oh wow.
So he's an amazing composer as well as a graphic artist. My brother wrote a song for the film that you'll see in it, and there's a lot of people that are just so wicked talented, that really helped me make this a real thing. And my partner Nick Gordon, he's fabulous. Love the guy, and he's been such a benefit to everything I've ever worked on. Well, not everything, but the last couple of projects he's been helping me with. So I guess that's it. Just I'm very gracious. I don't take anyone for granted, and hopefully they realize that, when we come together.
We need more people like you out in the world. Gratitude's huge.
You got to say thank you, and you have to be sincere when you say it, because, I mean, even when mistakes happen, these people are there working for not that much money, and a lot of them make more money than I can afford to pay them, and I realize it, and I realize that they're doing me a favor, but at the end of the day, we have this beautiful product that we put together, and I think they're all really proud of, the people who have seen it, the crew people who have seen it. They're blown away by it. They're like, wow, you really got something here. The editors are like, this is really good. If people don't respond to this one, then maybe I'm going to hang up my hat. I don't know.
If people don't respond to this one, they have bad taste.
Okay, all right.
I'm going with that one.
Well, I'll let them know that that's what you said. So.
That's what I said. I said it. I said what I said. Now,
And you can quote her on that.
yes. No, remind us for all of our listeners and all of our watchers,
Yeah.
where can people go to find out more about your project?
All right. Well, you can go to my Facebook page, or you can go to Out of Time Pictures, which is on Facebook, and they'll find links to my films. They'll see a lot of stuff about this one because I post every day, essentially something. I probably, like, everyone's probably like, oh, he's at it again. He's posting another thing about it. But I've overstayed my welcome, I think, with flooding people's Facebook streams with my film and the event itself. But you want people to buy those tickets. Tickets aren't that expensive. They're only $15 a piece, and you get 8 films for $15. That's pretty reasonable.
That's a very good price for a film fest.
Exactly. So, I mean, if you don't like something, just wait 5 minutes and you're going to see something you probably do like. That's what I tell people. So, come out, support independent filmmakers. We need you. We need your support. We need you sharing our posts. We need you telling other people to come out and support us. And it's a great venue, great cause, and you're helping this old middle-aged guy here make his dream come true.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Rob. I am definitely going to be bugging you when I go out to Massachusetts. I'll hopefully be there in the spring, so I'll be bothering you. So
that'd be great, because maybe by then we'll have money in the bank and we'll be filming the movie, and you could, be an extra.
woo!
There you go.
I would not say no to that. Actually,
Okay.
I'm not really comfortable in front of the camera, but if you need some extra hands, I'm great
You're a
at.
craft person. You can help
There you
me
go.
too.
I'm great at crafty. All right.
Because I did craft too on this one. I was the craft guy and the director. So,
Well, there you go. I'll just be a general PA and crafty, and there we go. We got this.
sweet.
Well, thank you so much, Rob. All right, John Thomas, you want to bring us home?
I do. Thank you again, Rob. This has been absolutely amazing, and I'm looking forward to watching this film. And fingers crossed on feature length there. So yes, I know we're going to share the hell out of this. And thank you everybody who has watched us live and who's tuning in. I'm your host, John Thomas.
I am Ashley Lunar Goddess.
And if anybody has any episode suggestions, comments, questions, please feel free to email us at 3hauntedpodcast@gmail.com. And if you haven't done so already, like always, we ask if you would like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media. You don't want to miss one crazy moment.
Until next time.
Are you looking for more awesome podcasts? Head on over to withoutyourhead.com for access to the Without Your Head podcast network, where you'll find a variety of podcasts sure to keep you entertained and coming back for more.